So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, and their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Emma Robinson, who's the managing director at Red Diamond Executive Headhunters. So, Emma, thank you for spending a little bit of time with us. If you could introduce yourself, Red Diamond, what you do, and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Good morning, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant.
I am the managing director of Red Diamond Executive Headhunters and Red Diamond Recruitment. Um, as we say in the title, that's exactly what we do. We headhunt and we recruit. So we have two businesses, one which is an executive headhunting business, and the other one which is a recruitment business. The two businesses feed into one another.
Yep.
Um, so the exec headhunting business is where we began, and which is what we're, I guess, famous for.
Yep.
So we work with companies of all different shapes and sizes around the globe, and we find C-level candidates for their businesses. Our motto is that probably the best people are not looking for jobs, so
Yeah.
therefore we go and hunt them down for our clients.
Brilliant. It's a really interesting point, isn't it? Yeah, the
Yes.
some of the people looking for jobs, there may be a reason for that.
Yes.
And that's not always the best reason to recruit them. So that must be quite fun because it sounds like it's more, as you say, you're more proactive in going and finding them, and um,
Yes.
what's I mean, I'm interested to know what sort of percentage, if you were able to share, yeah, are people
Sure.
open to that approach, or do you get a lot of people just saying just leave me alone, or is it something people see are flattered to be approached in the first place?
Yeah. Most people will have a conversation with us, Chris. Certainly, it's how you approach it and how you research those candidates.
Yeah.
So a big part of our job is the way we differ to the conventional recruiter is that we do a lot of background work and we do a lot of research up
Brilliant.
front. So some have likened us to a research business.
Right.
And employer branding and that kind of thing is incredibly important to the success or indeed the failure of hiring somebody that you really, really need.
Yes.
So the majority of the clients that we've got are people that they're at turning points in their business.
Yep.
I'll give you a couple of examples. We've had a retirement situation recently. We've had a client who they've bought another business and they need a different management setup.
Yes.
We have companies that are going through enormous change scenarios. So there's lots of different reasons why a company might use our
Yeah.
services, but they might want to do it very quietly.
Yes. Ah, yes, of course. Yeah, start to do that work even internally as well, so that people to yeah, that makes that's fascinating. And how are you seeing? I mean, working with businesses all the time, but so many people say you can't find great people anymore, and I just say well, that's not true. You just got to look harder. But how are you
Yes.
finding the employment market at the moment?
Well, yeah, listen, we're doing really well. The businesses, we're moving into our busy part of the year.
Right.
So the usually Q4 of the year is when we probably are most profitable.
Yep.
Um, that's largely because companies are gearing up for the new year.
Yep.
So, despite the fact we've still got 4 months left of 2024, there's still this, psychology in we need a new X for January, and we can't continue.
Yep.
We won't grow, or we won't be sustainable unless we bring somebody in.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is that pre-planning? Because it does. I mean, traditional recruitment takes some time. I would imagine headhunting
yes.
based recruitment takes even longer to get the right person.
Well, actually, I mean, it's a bit of a misnomer. I mean, part of what we do, because our process is so tight,
Yep.
and our upfront investment with our clients is so very involved. If you're working with a client who's very serious, and they want to do this and they follow our process, it largely doesn't fail.
Brilliant.
Um, So if you, and I say this to my clients, you can have what you want as long as you're realistic and you're willing to pay for it.
Great.
Um, so we work with that when we work with our clients, we do something. We don't really write job descriptions in our business. We do a client and a candidate briefing because job descriptions are a bit old fashioned and
Yep.
one way. And let's face it, if you're trying to get somebody to come and work for you, you've got to appeal to them, not to you. Does that make sense? So,
100%.
and they're some of the fundamental mistakes that people make in recruitment. They're thinking about what they want and not what their audience wants.
Yes. It-
We try to turn it on its head so
Yep.
that our clients understand. And the other thing is, it's a real opportunity as well for clients to say, I really don't like doing that job, or this is not my strength. And we try and extract that information from the leadership team
Yep.
so that then, because let's face it, how many jobs do we all do that we don't like doing?
Yeah.
But then you meet somebody who absolutely loves data mining, or they love fact finding, or they love
Absolutely.
administration, and that's not for us all.
Absolutely. And this idea that you have to strengthen your weaknesses is for me quite nuts. It's like, let's find somebody else who that is their strength, and strengthen the team rather than strengthen the individual.
Absolutely. I mean, there's an element of boring in all our jobs, I'm sure. Um, and the mundane parts that just, unfortunately we have to do.
Yes.
But if you're doing a really rubbish job at something, it's probably because it's not in your line of sight and it's not your area of expertise. So why are you doing it? It's madness. Especially in businesses where they've got the funds and they've got the people that potentially could do that.
Yeah.
So it's trying to understand the when we're hiring for our clients, it's hiring for tomorrow, not for today.
Yep. Brilliant.
And it's trying to get our clients into that mindset of, look, what you want right now, let's work backwards from where you want to be.
Yep.
So there is a bit of an element of start with the end in mind.
Brilliant.
Because let's face it, people's tenure in jobs is usually between kind of an exec is probably between 4 and 6 years.
Yes.
So let's go for the next 5 years
Yep.
and make a plan around, what we want that to look like and what the roadmap might be,
Brilliant.
and
Brilliant.
then put the person in to complement that roadmap.
Yeah. Absolutely bang on. And it's really interesting. I've found over the last few years working with business clients, it is the need, as you've already said. So traditionally, businesses have always had a budget, a significant budget to attract and keep great clients. It's marketing, client delight, all that sort of stuff. And the proposition we've been talking to a lot of businesses, we need a similar budget to attract and keep great team members, because it is difficult to potentially, not difficult to find them, but difficult to attract them. And having got them, it's really important we keep them. And so we give them an environment we choose. It's not just an employer's market anymore, it seems, anyway, from our experience.
It's absolutely not. But if also as well, there's an arrogance to thinking that in any
Yes.
case.
Yes,
It's
that's
like,
true.
why do you think it's all, why does the power shift have to be,
Yep, brilliant.
in one direction or another? I think that, in exec level recruitment, we kind of banish quite a lot of those theories because actually it's a company's maturity that we're
Yeah,
looking at. It's not whether or not you're in the driving seat or the candidate's in the driving seat. It's about what the end game is and what the problem is.
brilliant.
So take aside all your personal, take out the personal side of it and put the
Mhm.
facts in, and then
Yep,
let's work with the facts.
love
And
it.
then obviously there's good stuff like all the cultural side of things, and will these people fit in, and all the issues around gender equality and having a diverse workforce.
Yep,
But ultimately, certainly in the SME type businesses, it's about the right person for the job, surely.
yep, bang on, bang on. Wonderful. So, well, if we just take a step back first, and look at your background, how you got into business and why this particular one.
So to be honest, it was I worked. I left university, and I was supposed to go to Durham University the year after to do a master's. And I went to a recruitment agency and met a really lovely girl, and she said, "Why don't you come on our graduate trainee scheme?"
Right.
And I thought I was a bit naughty, really, because I thought, well, why not? Why don't I go on a graduate trainee scheme? I had no intention of ever staying. But I thought it sounds like fun. I could learn something new. And why not? So I gave it a go because it was a 1 year gig for me because I was
Right.
going to do something different.
Yes.
And anyway, lo and behold, 10 years later, I was still at that same company. So I worked for one of the big guys. I worked for a big PLC. I was fortunate enough to be pushed through the ranks relatively quickly. And then my final job within that business was I moved out to the Middle East
Yeah.
and specialised in senior finance in the Middle East within the construction industry. So
Right.
I went from doing kind of a lots of different things in finance to a very, very niche job.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, when I got there, the way that the company ran the Middle East was very different to the European business, which is understandable. But back in 2009, 2008, 2009, not only was there a pandemic, but in my opinion, the wrong people were in senior roles, and I
Right.
didn't fit in.
Right.
Um, and I took the decision then to go and work for a headhunter because I thought, actually, I'll go and work for a headhunter. I'd worked in traditional recruitment. I'll go give headhunting a shot. Went to work for a business, and that probably we'll just gloss over that because that's for definitely for another
Right.
podcast.
Sure.
And that was certainly a 6 month experience that taught me a lot, but also was one that should never ever be repeated in anybody's career.
Right.
And at that point, because they were such a small organization, I'd been setting them up in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And one of my clients said to me, "Why on earth are you working for these people? I mean, you should work for yourself." So at that point, I got offered the job of a managing director role for another big recruitment business in the Middle East. Or I took a chance and I went for it and did it myself.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
So persuaded two other people to join me. And that's when Red Diamond was born.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And is this when you were growing up? Is this what you foresaw yourself doing, or did you have other plans?
No, no, I was born for the stage, Chris.
Ah, wonderful.
It was I never thought I'd ever get a job sitting behind a desk ever. I was never going to do that. And
Fascinating.
then got into academia and really enjoyed it. And actually the desk job and the research side of things was
Yep.
what I absolutely loved.
Fascinating. I mean, I would suggest two quite different ends of the scale almost.
Yeah, and I'm probably best not being on stage to be real to be truthful, but yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And as you've grown the business, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome?
Oh my gosh, honestly. So we set the company up in the middle of a recession.
Yeah.
We had I've moved from the Middle East to the UK and set up another company in the UK. So we're here in the UK now. This is where our HQ is,
Yep.
in sunny old Yorkshire.
Brilliant.
And then that was for family reasons. So then we had obviously the pandemic. I've had two children in the middle.
Goodness.
So what everything we've been there, we've done it, we've got the t-shirt, we've had dark months, we've had great months, we've had fabulous staff, I've had nightmares. So we've kind of seen a lot in the sort of 13, 14 years we've been in business.
Brilliant.
Notwithstanding, again, kind of more recent times when we've had the pandemic, which we did incredibly well within because our C-suite clients still needed us.
Yes. Yeah. I've met quite a number of businesses that have done really well, and a lot of it was about being ready for a situation like that. Not necessarily planning for a pandemic, but the ability to work remotely, to communicate in different ways, and it's sort of the right situation happens. But I mean, so you're 14 years in, and I don't know if you know this stuff, but I think it's well worth highlighting them. Unfortunately, in the UK, and it's fairly standard across the world, 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, and of
Yes.
the 20% that survive 80% of those fail in the following 5 years. So
Yeah.
to get to past 10, you're in the top 4% of businesses. So congratulations. I hope that's something that you've been able to celebrate over time.
Yeah, sure. No, and it's true, isn't it? I mean, a lot of business. I can understand why some of these businesses lose their energy because I mean, I'm sure it's a subject we'll come on to, but it's tough running your own company, and being solely accountable,
Yeah.
and being the one in charge and being the one responsible for a group of people and their salaries and all the rest of it.
It's a big responsibility, and it's quite a lonely place often, because it is
It's
difficult to share. When we've got challenges, we don't probably want to take them home. We Sometimes it's difficult to share them with the team, because if it's to do with the business, that's a concern, and it is quite a tough place, isn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is very lonely, and I think that one thing we've invested in massively is external support.
Great,
So we use coaches and mentors and things in
brilliant,
this business, and we do regular training programs with everybody
brilliant.
because we're constantly telling our clients, you don't know what you don't know,
Yep,
and therefore we need to practice that as well.
yep, brilliant. It's that lifelong constant commitment to learning. I think that stands
Yes.
most successful people out, is that ability to realize we don't know everything. In fact, I was told a while ago, and I love the story. So there's a guy called Tony Benn, Anthony Wedgwood Benn, I think was actually a Lord Benn before he retired from Parliament. And when he retired, he started to lecture on the university circuits, and he'd always start his presentation saying, we all know less today than we did yesterday. And
Yes.
to which there was a consternation with all the lectures and stuff. It's a seat of learning, and they're saying, well, we're learning less. What do you mean? And he just said, there's so much more information available every single day. The amount of information is growing so fast. Our percentage of that knowledge learning is just going to reduce. So we have to work as hard as we can to keep that knowledge up with the new world, new environment, new situations.
Absolutely. I mean, my absolute mantra in life is the two things that I believe we should all invest in, are our health and education. And
Great.
if they're the only two things that you worry about, you're probably going to be okay. Um,
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. I love that. And everything else comes from there, doesn't it? If we, as you say, if we're healthy and knowledgeable, then most things are solvable. Soluble.
Absolutely, and it's so simple. I mean, we've got quite a simple business. Um, we've got one product, and we and I think that that's important for us. We need to do one thing really, really well.
Yep.
And if we do that really well for our clients, then people will talk about that and they will come to us and we'll be the industry leaders.
Brilliant. Bang on. And speaking of learning, what are the biggest learnings you've had about growing a business?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, I think there's just so many things. I mean, I've learned to be more risky.
Yeah.
I was very risk averse in the early days. We had no external, we wouldn't get a loan. We would only move forward when we'd earned the money to do it. And I think
Yeah.
that's a Yorkshire thing. I
Yes.
think that's you don't put things on a credit card. You don't get a loan for things. You earn it and then you buy it. And actually, I think that that's held us back somewhat. If I
Yeah.
was going to say,
Yeah.
the one thing I'd probably take a few more risks, and be a little bit braver.
Yeah.
And that, I think, that comes with maturity, though, Chris. I think when I set this business up, I was 30. So really, I've no clue. And it was so that in itself, just giving up a great job in a
Yeah.
PLC with all the benefits that come
Yes.
with that, and thinking, sod it, I'm going to go and, go and do it on my own. I mean, there's an absolute ridiculous amount of arrogance in there. We didn't even have a business plan.
Well, it's yeah, you're not. I'm sure you're not alone in that in many ways. I think Michael Gerber talks in the book The E-Myth. He talks about the entrepreneurial seizure, which is look,
Yes.
got to get it right around, otherwise I insult people. So it's stop working for an idiot and start working for a lunatic, i.e., ourselves.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
um,
That's exactly what we did. I mean, we were crazy. What we did was absolutely, when I look back now, we set up our business in our spare bedroom in a villa in Dubai that cost us an absolute flaming fortune, Chris.
brilliant.
We were every single month. I think the panic of if we don't make this much money, we can't pay our rent
Yeah,
was enough of a motivator to keep us going.
brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
It's yeah, we need those drivers, don't we? We really do. And again, without a
Mm,
level of accountability, and that's again one of the challenges that business
yes.
leaders, business owners have, is potentially a lack of accountability. Is there isn't, if we're the boss, there isn't necessarily anyone around us that's going to say you need to do that. If you don't do
Yeah, absolutely.
the outcome. Um,
Agreed.
and speaking of which, as I think you're aware, we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches that you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Oh gosh, do you know what? I'm so fortunate because I recruit C-level people.
Yes.
So we have a real like robust system that we work with. So by the time the candidates come to me, it's because they are absolutely perfect for the end role. So
Brilliant.
I'll give you a recent example. I've recently recruited a non-exec director for one of my clients, which was a very powerful position because it was a conduit between the business and the founding family. This is a very
Yep.
traditional, big, well-established, amazing organization. So they had incredibly high standards.
Yep.
And the short list of candidates in there, I can honestly say, I could have sat and chatted to those candidates
Wonderful.
all day long.
Wonderful.
And so the influence of those individuals that I'm fortunate enough to speak to daily, um,
Yeah.
is so fortunate. We're so fortunate to have that.
I can absolutely imagine. I can absolutely imagine that. That must be quite a wonderful thing to do. And you mentioned your mentor earlier, but have whether it's from those people or yourself. Are there any favorite quotes or sayings that you catch yourself using a lot?
I don't, not that catch myself using a lot, but I do believe that, I do believe health is wealth and
Yes.
all those sorts of things. But there's a quote from Einstein that I like, and it's never give up on what you really want to do, because the person with the big dreams is more powerful than the one with all the facts.
Oh, wonderful. I've not heard that quote funnily enough. That's
It,
wonderful.
it's by Einstein, and I think that it's true that the power of your mind. And I think it's certainly in business, certainly for me, you if you've got the right attitude
Yeah,
and the right mindset, you can achieve incredible things.
can achieve anything. That I think the challenge we have here, it's quite a sad challenge, is that when we're young, when we're very small, we have massive dreams. Whether it's to be go into space or go on stage or whatever. And and most people, unfortunately, as we get older, we shrink our dreams to meet our reality rather than increase our reality to meet our dreams. And
Yes.
it's a sad thing, and it's a battle ongoing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of interference around us telling us those things too. And again, that's where we need the support to be able to confront and defend against those things, I feel.
Sure. No, agreed.
One thing I was going to ask you, because we're talking about C-suite, and I was lucky enough to listen to a lady called Jennifer Byrne a couple of years ago, and she was the ex-CTO at Microsoft, going back a few years,
Yes.
worked directly for Bill Gates, I believe. And one thing she said, and it really struck me, especially for SME businesses, business owners, but the quote was obviously primarily about around large business, and she said in the US, when they're recruiting C-suite executives, they actively test them on their ability not to do things.
Really?
and I found that fascinating because, especially for business owners and the people we work with a lot, to get to here, we've had to do a hell of a lot. And the challenge, I think, is it's a really interesting challenge, is learning to delegate effectively over time and make it not about us. It is a very important thing if we want to grow past our own capacity.
Absolutely. I think that the difficulty is that when you set up a business and it's something that you've been actively involved in, it's trying to immerse yourself out of the
Yep.
day to day and helicopter above it so that you've got the ability to run the business and you're
Yes.
not just in the business. And that's incredibly hard. It's
Yeah.
not so easy.
No.
We're a 10-man operation. So of course I'm involved in all sorts of things, but I no longer get involved in things like marketing. I no longer get involved in sales. I no longer get involved in certain areas, but that's very difficult. You've got to peel yourself away from that. And I think that does come again with maturity.
Yes.
But when you first set up your own business, you've got to be the master of blooming everything, haven't you?
It really do, and I think there's a sort of point on that growth curve where we either embrace that change, i.e.,
Yes.
I often say to people, we can get to a certain size level of success with a few good people in sheer blood and guts. With everybody work really, really hard, and we can be
Yes.
successful. But while that's our mindset, we will ultimately hit a limit of our own time. And without that fundamental change of now I need to work through people, I need to have systems and processes and people using them, then we will limit, because it's literally even 10% growth. If I haven't got 10%
Yes.
more time, I can't grow. But it's a fundamental mindset change, and that's quite difficult to do sometimes.
Absolutely. And that's one of the, like, as I said, in the last few years, the changes I've made, have been, we have employed external bodies to do
Brilliant.
things.
Brilliant.
Ultimately, before that, we couldn't afford not to. It was, what can everybody do? It's all hands to the pump. We're very hands on. We've got to do this because there isn't the funds
Yep.
to be able to do that. And as soon as you do get to that point where you can say, right, okay, I'm no longer doing social media and marketing. I'm no longer going to do the accounts myself.
Yep.
I'm no longer, then that's a really empowering place.
Yep.
And that's when I think your step change is in
Yep.
terms of growth, certainly from our perspective.
Yeah, bang on, absolutely bang on. And speaking of learning, what would you say you learned about yourself throughout your journey so far?
Oh my word. I think again, you're constantly learning, aren't you? I mean, I it's funny, we've just had the school holidays, so my kids have been off for nearly 9 weeks.
Yep.
And I think a lot of parents certainly working mums and dads, they get nervous, coming up to that holiday.
Yes.
Um, I actually now have started learning to love the fact that I've got 8 weeks with my children and
Brilliant.
this is not going to last forever,
Yeah.
as opposed to fearing it. So I think
Yes.
it's,
Lovely.
embracing some of the stuff that you've just got no choice around and hoping that you again, like, the right attitude gets you through. The other thing is then it's coming out the other side, and the kids are back at school now. Great, let's get our heads down, let's get stuck into work.
Yep.
Actually, I really discovered that I don't really like these, man, you've got to be here at this time, you've got to be there at that time, because my job's not like that. If I'm working on a hire in the Middle East or I'm working on a hire in Singapore, the time differences are completely different.
Yes.
And that's why we've got a good business, because we've always said, actually, there's 24 hours in a day and we need to work probably between 7 and 9 realistically to get decent productivity from people.
Yep.
Beyond that, I think it's a bit crazy.
Agreed.
So I've learned that actually, let's just work. We don't have to do 9 to 5. We don't have to be in the office Monday to Friday. There are
Brilliant.
things and ways and means around doing a really, really good job. And actually, the fact that we're not like that is really appealing to our clients, because it means that our candidates not worried about stealing an hour's worth of their day to talk to me,
Yep.
because I'm going to them and saying, it's fine to talk to you at 9 o'clock at night. It's fine to talk to you at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
And it's
Brilliant.
having that level of, and now I think it's taken me a little while to go, that's really fine.
Yeah. Brilliant. It's interesting because I say to people I work with that the challenge with being a business owner ultimately is that the buck stops with us. I think you mentioned that earlier. We're
Yes.
responsible for everything. That's the challenge, and until we're able to pass that on to somebody else that's going to run the business on our behalf. The great thing about running a business is we get to choose exactly how it is. It can be totally different to any other business, any norm that's been created. We just choose, and that's what's wonderful about it. We're not conforming to other people's choices or plans. We're running our own.
Sure. I mean, for us as well, there's that level of, making sure that our clients are looked after, and
Yep.
at the end of the day, as long as we meet our clients' needs and we get our job done,
Yep.
I feel that, over the years we've become much more flexible in our approach, but also as well worked a little in the Middle East. Most of our work's done over dinner, or over,
Right.
drinks or whatever.
Yes.
Whereas in the UK, it's practically unheard of that you'd say to your client, right, okay, we'll go out on Thursday at 7 o'clock. I'll meet you here and we'll discuss everything.
Yeah.
They don't want to do it because we're not like that in the UK. We're
No.
much more rigid and much more stuck to this 9 to 5.
Yes.
Um,
Really interesting that. Yeah, yeah. And that flexibility, as you say, if it appeals and to a client that, especially more potentially, I guess, more sociable clients. Oh, that sounds wonderful. And the ones that want to get to know us, that would be a natural thing. But I can get culturally that's very different between there and here. But yeah, we do tend to love our standards and norms here, don't we? This is how it is. This is what you do, and it just doesn't have to be.
I know. I think over the years I've emerged and I've become a little bit more, throw caution to the wind and be a little bit more flexible and work around your clients. And we've got a member of staff today who's got a meeting at 6:30 this evening, and he's got a young family as well, and so it would be wrong of me not to respect his family life.
Yeah,
So, if he needs to take his daughter to school tomorrow morning, so he's present at breakfast, then I think that's incredibly important, because the
brilliant.
other side of what I've learned, I guess, I think that's part of becoming parents as well,
Yep,
is that actually, if your home life is in good shape, and again, it goes back to the health side of things, if your home life's good,
yep,
and your family appreciate what you're doing,
yep,
it doesn't matter that you're not there, that dad's not there at dinner time, because he'll be there tomorrow, or and it's having that respect for the wider
yep,
members of your team, and understanding that not everything's black and white.
yep. Yeah, absolutely bang on. Absolutely bang on. Um, and sort of looking forwards then, Emma, what does the future look like for you guys? And what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
Sure. So, look, we're in growth mode right now, so we're growing our business,
Brilliant,
which is really good, because we've got, good numbers year in, year out from
brilliant.
kind of 2018, when this business got quite serious. I think the future for us is that we would like to open a couple more international offices. And it may be that we just have people on the ground in international places, so it makes life a bit easier for us. Um, and then the other side of it as well is, really being the best at what we do. So embracing technology, new systems, new processes,
Right,
so that we are seen as the people of choice if you are looking for somebody in your C-suite.
brilliant, brilliant. And what would you say to anyone that's thinking of going to business right now?
Well, I mean, gosh, I did it, so anybody can do it. Literally, I had I had a determination, is what I had,
Yep,
and need to prove a point. And let's face it, most people go and do something that they feel they go into business usually because they feel they can do something better than the company that they're working for.
yep.
And I just think that you might regret not trying.
Nice. I like. Yeah, I think that's bang on. You might regret not trying. We tend to regret way more what we didn't do rather than what we did do. And
Exactly.
bang on. And if you started again, is there anything significant that you think you might do differently?
Yeah, well, I'd definitely write a business plan.
Brilliant.
Um, I'd probably look for funding as well, and investment.
Yes,
And there's
great.
loads of organizations out there that can help and support you. And in those investment businesses are often mentors and
Yeah,
people that have been there and done it and sold companies.
yeah,
And I would say that that's something really worth looking at today, because there's lots of people that exit and did exit, I suppose, early because of the pandemic, that have got a lot of experience and are willing to help you, probably for not a lot of money as well.
Absolutely. There is, I mean, one of the other I guess benefits of the last sort of 10 to 12 years is that there is a significant amount of investment money out there. That investing in businesses is a sound investment to get a return when there's very little return that we can get from the banks. So, people that typically might have just saved and relied on the banks to give them some sort of return are looking to put some of their money in other places like businesses. So the money's there for sure.
Yeah. I think as well, certainly in a recruitment business, there's if anybody's thinking about getting into, leaving the like I did, leaving the big boys and going and doing it on their own. The only thing I would say about that is that there are a lot of people doing what I do from their back bedroom with no systems and processes.
Yes.
That's not going to cut it today.
Yes. Right.
I mean, I can't tell you the amount of money that we spend on our CRM system, our research facilities, our processes, and
Brilliant.
that's really valuable. That's come over time.
Yep.
And now we're able to get those bigger jobs because we've got a reputation for doing a great job for people, but
Brilliant.
it's not because we're sat around waiting for people to come to us.
Yep. Brilliant.
So don't underestimate just the power of what you've got around you.
Yeah.
Go in with your eyes wide open, because I can tell you now you're going to become lawyer, accountant, HR director, marketing. The list is endless, and chief tea maker.
Absolutely. And yes, I remember I've read many contracts in my time, and I don't think I enjoyed a single second. Maybe the sale of the business contract was the one I probably enjoyed most, but other than that, I don't think I really enjoyed any. But it's somebody's got to do it, and ultimately, certainly in those early days, the buck stops with us, doesn't it? So,
Absolutely.
so finally, Emma, what advice would you give an 18-year-old you if you're able to go back in time and do that?
I think when I was 18, I was very, focused on getting a career, and really, I was very keen on my academics and quite a studious individual. I probably look back and say, do you know what? There's time for all of that, and you don't need to do that when you're 18. Enjoy your life, have fun. They say youth's wasted on the young, don't they?
They do, yes.
And it was very much like that for me. I feel like I was a very mature 18-year-old, and actually I should have probably had a bit more fun. I should have seen the world a bit more. I should have done some of those things and took a few more risks.
Brilliant, brilliant. That sounds like a bit of a common thing. Emma, it's been really fascinating, and congratulations on everything you've achieved. And for anyone that's watching that would like to contact you or Red Diamond, what would be the best way to do that?
Well, we've got a very good LinkedIn. You can go to our LinkedIn page, which is Red Diamond Executive Headhunters. You can connect with me. All my details are everywhere. So please ring me, call me, email, whichever. You'll find all my details all on the web, the usual
Brilliant.
ways.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. And it'd be great to catch up in another 6-12 months and just see what the next phase of the business growth you're going through at that point. But for now, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Lovely to meet you.
And you.